Now, let's say after that fact. So now, let's say you're in the tents of Karama. You're in this UN, you know, spot where they have pitched 300,000 tents or so. It's got a lot of refugees there. Did many of them attempt to go back at all, or did they just basically say we're going to stay here until things die down? And did they eventually, all of them, move towards Jordan and Syria and Lebanon?
Well, the borders with Israel after 48 were absolutely closed, so you cannot go back, even if you try. There is the Israeli soldiers in one side, there is the Arab soldiers in the Jordanian side. So basically, it was impossible to be able to go back. Just completely shut down from both ends.
Right.
And that's why we basically 2 years later, we moved into Jordan. We went actually to Amman. We lived in a tent for a couple of years also.
But did they, just to stop you here, I've heard these stories from your brothers, your older brothers, etc. But something happened to you actually in the Jordanian River. I know you were very young. You were probably approximately 2 years old at this time.
That is correct, and of course, personally I don't remember it, but what I was told by my parents and elder brothers and other people who know what happened.
You were playing by the river, right?
Swept me away and took me for approximately a mile or so. Lucky that one of the refugees were on the other side of the river and saw me in the river and were able to pull me out.
So the current actually was so fast that it kept your head above water.
That is correct.
Okay. Now, how did they know, with all these refugees and you just being an infant at this, or a toddler at least at this point, how did they know to that which family you belonged to, just with the amount of people that were there?
What I was told, that this family who were able to pull me out of Jordan River, they basically bake the bread for everybody in the camp. So when my family go and then try to get fresh bread from them, they see me with my mother all the time, so they knew who I was.
I see, and that's how you were returned.
Absolutely, and they took me back, and they did not even miss me because everybody was sick. Just like the camp condition were so bad that everybody was sick most of the time.
Okay, and then, but at some point after, let's say, 2 years, your father decided, you know what, it's time to go. I'm not going to sit here in the tent all of my life. So, what happened from there? Your father decided, my grandfather decided to move to Jordan.
That's correct. And just basically, he was going back and forth to Amman, Jordan. He made several trips while we were in the camps, and he was able to move us to Amman out of the United Nations camps, but we stayed in the tent, the whole family of 12, and we were there. He was able to do small business for very little money. Within 2 years we moved to a very tiny one-bedroom apartment, and we were able to stand on our feet, and the business grew, and my older brothers went into same business with basically making bricks, manufacturing bricks, and all of them get married, and they have kids and grandchildren, and big families. One of my brothers is a doctor, and another one has a store in a shopping mall and the shopping center. Another one has a construction company. Another one has construction company, and
so alhamdulillah,
they are
great
all
success.
Yes, they started with absolutely nothing, and they made big things out of themselves.
Now, you mentioned to me one time that your father actually used to go back to Palestine with his best friend, and he actually was killed then.
Before 1948, and they were fighting the British, basically the occupation, and unfortunately, his best friend died during the war with the British, basically fighting the occupation.
Right.
That is correct.
And I think a lot of people do not understand what the Intifada is or what it actually means. Could you explain that to the viewers? Like uprising, or
nobody knows what the occupation, or nobody knows what the occupation is unless you are under occupation. Basically,
right.
You have no freedom, absolutely. And after years and years of occupation, and there is no light at the end of the tunnel, people revolted, and that's happened in United States before the independence, and of course it happened in Britain, it happened everywhere in every country. So they revolt, and that's what the Intifada is revolt. And of course, lost lots of lives, but the message from everyone who started this revolt or Intifada is enough of the occupation. We need freedom like anybody else in the world.
Now, there are some people that I've seen, YouTube videos regarding these situations. They say, well, listen, we tried, the Israelis tried to move out of Gaza, but yet they would still get Qassam rockets or whatever, any type of just rocket launched, into Israeli territories, and they're like, well, see, we tried to move out of Gaza. How come, this is what we're going to get if we try to move back? We're going to basically commit suicide. What are your thoughts on that?
They really did not move out of Gaza. Gaza is just like a big prison. The soldiers or the prisoners, the jailers were basically inside the prison. Now they are surrounding the prison. Gaza is basically surrounded with the Israelis, and you cannot leave or come in without Israeli approval. And basically for the last possibly months, less than 400 people were able to get in Gaza or out. So it's just like a big jail. Still Israeli occupy all the borders of Gaza.
So you would not be able to just go to the next town over,
Absolutely.
Really, without the threat
Absolutely.
of being attacked or even just sniped by a sniper.
You cannot leave Gaza or come back to Gaza.
And that goes for other towns surrounding Gaza too, as well, correct?
Well, yes, of course. It's Gaza as the whole area of Gaza, and there is a small city in Gaza. But that's the same thing with the West Bank, with the wall dividing villages, with checkpoints everywhere. Basically, you cannot go from one village to another. You cannot take your family to basically go to a hospital and be treated. Sometimes to go to school, which it is across the street, and because of the wall, you have to go all the way about 3-4 miles to go around to be able to go to your school or to visit your sister across the street.
Now, knowing that there are other countries, other cities that are being occupied throughout the world, and yet the U.S. comes to their aid, why do you think this situation is just so different